I'm watching all of One Piece for the first time, and I'm reviewing every individual episode, movie, special, and any other piece of media I can get my hands on. Reviews of individual episodes are uploaded here on my channel's Shorts tab, but if you want the extra juicy bits like the movies and specials, you'll have to watch the full saga coverages like the one you're watching right now. Speaking of, welcome to the Alabasta Saga! I'm sorry to say, but there isn't much supplementary content this time around. Whereas the East Blue Saga had 2 movies, an animated short, a special episode, a recap episode, and an OVA, Alabasta only has a movie and its accompanying special. That unfortunately means 90% of this video would have been taken up by just compiled shorts if I didn't plan to do something a little different this time around. Starting by ranking every devil fruit so far. As of the end of the East Blue Saga, counting all of the non-canon and filler material, we've been introduced to 10 devil fruit powers. In order, we have Luffy's Gum Gum fruit, Buggy's Chop Chop fruit, Eldorago's Goe Goe no Mi, which directly translates to Voice Voice fruit but would probably be localized as something like Shout Shout fruit, Smoker's Plume Plume fruit, Alvida's Smooth Smooth fruit, this mysterious guy's Weather Controlling, probably a devil fruit, Obby's Whisper Whisper fruit, Eric's Sickle Sickle fruit, Honey Queen's Toro Toro no Mi, which would probably be localized to Syrup Syrup fruit or Goo Goo fruit. And finally, Bear King's Kachi Kachi no Mi, which would probably be localized as something like Flint Flint fruit or Crackle Crackle fruit. All tiers will be ordered strongest to weakest, starting with S tier. In S, we start with the unnamed Weather fruit. The ability to create and control storms with enough precision to call down lightning on a specific spot is incredibly strong. It has the obvious weakness of being ineffective against Rubberman, but there's only one of those, so the cake has been taken. Next up is the Plume Plume fruit. And what little we see of Smoker, he's shown to use his power with incredible versatility and is able to capture and hold other devil fruit users, even strong ones. Finally, we have the Gum Gum fruit. The ability to stretch and change shape proves incredibly useful in a wide variety of situations, but it has enough known weaknesses to stop it from being on the top. To start A tier, we have the Smooth Smooth fruit. We didn't get to see much of it, but it protects the user from any and all projectile and bludgeoning attacks, as well as having good maneuverability. Next is the Chop Chop fruit, which, while incredibly strong against non-devil fruit users, lacks the versatility needed for an S tier evaluation. We do see Buggy use it to turn himself into a car, but he's vulnerable to pretty much everything but slashing damage, and if the user is missing any parts, they're stuck in an incredibly weakened state. Second to last is the Sickle Sickle fruit, which has no obvious weaknesses and an incredibly strong melee and projectile attack. The only downside is it doesn't have much non-combat applicability unless you're a farmer. To round out the tier, we have the Kachi Kachi no Mi. It's clearly strong and even dealt a decent amount of burning damage to Luffy, but again, little versatility or non-combat application. In B tier, we start with the Goo Goo fruit. The ability to transform your body into liquid would be incredibly strong if it didn't come with the downside of being a puddle of syrup that can be stopped by a glass jar. Following it up is the Shout Shout fruit, which is certainly strong, but just doesn't compare to the strength of previously mentioned devil fruits. All the way down in F tier, we have the Whisper Whisper fruit. It comes with all the downsides of a devil fruit, like not being able to swim, and the only thing you get in return is the ability to speak to animals and dragons. But also, anyone with a devil fruit can speak to dragons. I'll be checking back after every arc that introduces a new devil fruit to add them to the rankings, but until then, I hope you enjoy what's coming.
Episode 62. Top 10 new sub-faces. Entering the Grand Line only to literally immediately be met with the biggest threat to their lives they've faced so far is a great way to establish that they're already out of the water in terms of their natural hierarchy of power. I do also find it funny that the one crew member who can't swim is also the only one who doesn't get swallowed by the whale. But the more they show of this whale and its interior, the more questions I have. It is actually a biological whale. This thing isn't a submarine, it's not fake, it's a real whale that's just been hollowed out. This thing has an interior built like a subway system. We're also introduced to these 2 new characters who seem to be serving an antagonistic role for the remainder of however long this whale takes place. After Warship Island, you could have animated this with Microsoft PowerPoint and I wouldn't have been mad. This is a great introduction to the Grand Line and the wackiness that we're going to see from the series going forward. Episode 63. The show's done it. It's made me feel bad for the giant whale. This backstory is incredibly sad, but I feel so mad at these guys because they didn't come back for the whale. I absolutely love Luffy's plan to make it so Laboon stops hurting himself by painting a big mark on him so he can't wash it off. Luffy may act like an idiot, but he sure does understand people. And whales. I have no idea who these guys are, but I'll be sending my plush toy order in by mail. We get an explanation for how navigating the Grand Line works, which makes sense. It has to be weird and convoluted, otherwise this wouldn't be an anime. But we also get the end goal. Rafta is what I think they called it. I also really like this scene where Nami tricks Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, but I also want to learn more about this mysterious company they work for. Are those their real names? It seems like that's not their real names. Still off to a great start on the Grand Line. Cannot wait to see more. Stay tuned for more. I said more twice. Episode 64. I know I keep saying this, but I really do appreciate how the Grand Line is immediately even so much more dangerous than they expected. Going from snow to the ship nearly sinking because of the weather, and the entire time Zoro's just taking a nap. Why is it that there are so many funny moments that just involve Zoro sleeping? I wasn't a big fan of how it looked like the crew was falling for the world's most obvious trap at Whiskey Peak. Last episode I said Luffy knows people, I guess he doesn't. I am also interested to learn more about this Baroque Works company. Zoro gives a little expository spiel at the end, but I still want to know more. That being said, this episode kind of felt like it was a 2-in-1, with the front half being the journey to Whiskey Peak and then the back half being Whiskey Peak, or should I call it Cactus Island. That doesn't make it bad, just makes it feel kind of rushed a little bit. Episode 65. This episode's basically just 20 minutes of unmitigated ass-kicking by Zoro towards every Baroque Works agent on this island. Of course, Zoro's not the only intelligent member of the crew. Nami literally stares directly into the camera and says she knew it was a trap. I swear, every time I say I want to learn more about this company, the next episode they literally just tell us more about this company. If these three are the 8th and 9th best that the company has to offer, that's just... I'd hate to see number 10 or 11. For goodness sake, Zoro beats Mr. 9 by pushing him off a roof. When I'm into sexualizing every young woman character in my story competition and my enemy is Ichiro Oda, it just dawned on me. They're called the Unluckies because they're Friday and the 13th. Friday the 13th. Also, how the hell is an otter the 13th strongest member of that organization? I'm back to being hooked. Episode 66. Between the anime, movies, and filler, we were introduced to, I think, 5 total devil fruit powers in the entirety of the East Blue Saga. But here, just 5 episodes into the Grand Line, we've already been introduced to 2 more. The ability to blow up your boogers is about the grossest superpower I could imagine. I would have the exact same reaction to cutting someone's booger. That's gross. I love that in classic Nami fashion, Nami is using a life or death situation where an entire kingdom may be at stakes to extort money out of everyone she knows. Oh god, they didn't need to put the shine detail. I did not need to know that Luffy gets the meat sweats. So Luffy's devil fruit power is broken, right? Because he just straight up decimated that other devil fruit guy without even breaking a sweat. In fact, it helped him reverse breaking a sweat. Other than that, Luffy versus Zoro is a pretty fun fight. Episode 67. This episode starts off fairly slow-paced, which is kind of nice considering the last 2 episodes were nothing but pure action. We get a bigger explanation of how Baroque works, and the fact that their boss is someone named Crocodile, who's one of the 7 warlords of the sea. And if you remember from Arlong Park, the 7 warlords of the sea are one of the 3 great powers, and I still have no idea who the others are. This little bit with Nami storming off only for Mr. 13 to scratch all their faces, that's great. I love that. Holy shit, does this episode pick up real quick. I just love the tense feeling for the entire back half of the episode. They know they're being chased, because they do. Look, I'm with Sanji on this one. This is just peak character design. This whole thing with Miss Sunday basically taunting them, I can't tell if she's actually trying to help them or if it really was a trap. It feels like it could go either way. And I think that's a good feeling. From an audience perspective, it's fun and intriguing to have this character with brand new powers, with mysterious motivation that may or may not be helping the heroes, but that we know is working with the villain. It creates a really interesting dynamic that I want to see more of. A dynamic that's only exacerbated by Luffy refusing to take handouts. It really is just peak character work. I've already got people in my comments telling me that Alabasta is going to be some of the best stuff in One Piece, so I'm really excited. Episode 68. The episode starts off with an awkward segue reminiscing about the past that leads into a story about Kobe and Helmeppo from the first couple episodes. Last time this happened with the Buggy's special stories, I was told that this was based on actual cover stories from the manga, which are stories that take place exclusively on the cover of the manga, which I think is really interesting. I also think it's a much better way to pad out episode time than just introducing filler arcs, especially after the disaster that was Warship Island. This scene with Helmeppo, reminiscing over his father and the fact that his father is very likely going to be put to death is actually really well done. It shows a lot of conflict with the character and his opinions towards his father, who he knows was a cruel man. But, as he says, it's still his father. Honestly, this episode is super well done. Plus, with Kobe and Helmeppo being taken to Marine headquarters at the end, it probably means we're going to see more of them sooner rather than later. Episode 69. This little opening with the Straw Hats is really fun, and it makes me question the logistics of how the newspaper system works in this universe. But this is another episode about Kobe and Helmeppo. Honestly, being a Marine shore boy doesn't seem that bad. You just gotta do laundry, scrub the floors, and in exchange you get food, a place to sleep, and probably the safest place on the planet. This is Marine headquarters. Are they mowing the grass with their bare hands? I take it all back. It is nice to see Luffy's effect on these characters and how it's motivating them to become better people, or at least better Marines. This episode isn't the funniest, and it's not the most action-packed, but I think it serves a very good purpose of exploring secondary and tertiary characters and kind of just filling out the space of how they're supposed to work, how this world is. But that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more.
With Whiskey Peak at an end, we've been introduced to 3 new Devil Fruit powers. Mr. Five's Bomb Bomb Fruit and Miss Valentine's Kilo Kilo Fruit, both of which I'm going to put in B tier, and Miss L Sunday's Devil Fruit that I'll rank when we get to know more about her. The combat capabilities of the Bomb Bomb Fruit are incredibly strong, only limited by the lack of range if you don't have an assist device. But its non-combat applications aren't very strong, which prevent the ability from going any higher. Likewise, the Kilo Kilo Fruit has a ton of non-combat applications, especially with the ability to make yourself lighter than air. But in actual combat, it can be easily trumped, and if your opponent can lift more than 10,000 kilos, something that could very easily be possible in the One Piece world, you're certainly screwed. I'm also going to be taking a pit stop now to very quickly say a few words about the arcs I just covered. Both were very fast paced, taking up a grand total of 6 episodes combined, but I still enjoy them. Reverse Mountain is the perfect introduction to the Grand Line after it was hyped up for a decent portion of the East Blue Saga, and Whiskey Peak served as an excellent introductions to the stake at play in Alabasta. I know it's going to be a long time before we ever see characters like Laboon or Crocus again, but that eventual payoff will be well worth it once Luffy and company have become seasoned travelers. But for now, we still have to get through the rest of the journey, continuing on with Little Garden.
Watching and reviewing all of One Piece, episode 70. If this is what qualifies as entertainment on this ship, then no wonder Luffy prioritized a musician over a doctor. We're introduced to 2 new characters, Mr. 3 and his accomplice, but those 2 only make a small appearance while the rest of the episode is dedicated to introducing us to this new island, Little Garden. I thought that the episode did a very good job of introducing this island and making it seem like a real legitimate threat might be lurking somewhere, especially with that tiger that just collapsed, but they immediately kind of quashed that by having Sanji and Zoro immediately trounce the dinosaur threat. I do love Luffy's childlike reaction to finding out dinosaurs are still alive, though. It's so wholesome and innocent and exactly what I would do if I had stretchy powers and met a dinosaur. Like with most start of arc episodes, this one leaves a lot more to dive into, but that's a good thing because it's the start of the arc. That's why it's a start of arc episode. Episode 71. We're introduced to 2 more new characters. This time, they're giants. This one that was looking for alcohol shares the same voice actor as I believe his name was Gaimon, the guy in the box, Jonathan C. Osborne. He has a very distinctive voice, and you'll hear it a couple times throughout the series. He also does additional voices from time to time. I am very glad that I can say Nami and Usopp thinking they're both going to be eaten by this giant is very funny, especially when they're both so resigned to death. Which is a kind of messed up thing to say, but it's played as a joke in the show. I really like Sanji and Zoro's rivalry here. It's the first time we really get to see them interact and their dynamic beyond just fighting. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Little Garden when that volcano goes off. If this is what happens, those 2 are mowing down trees. No wonder they've been wanted for over 100 years. The more I see of this guy, the more I dislike him. Not because of his character, but because of that big-ass number 3 on his head. Episode 72. According to the number that they said, I think it was 73,644 fights. Over about 100 years, that's an average of 2 fights a day. That's one hell of an active volcano. I do like how they act more like friendly rivals than mortal enemies, though. That's always a fun dynamic to see. So, if the alcohol barrel was rigged to blow, does that mean Mr. 5 put one of his boogers in it? Oh, that's disgusting. I love to see a little bit of Vivi's Miss Wednesday personality shining through. So these Elsbeth giants, they're clearly based on Vikings. So does anyone know if Norse culture was a big, warrior pride culture? Because Elsbeth sure is, with how, these guys act for their dueling for 100 years and Dory going when he's severely injured. I'm just curious if that's something pulled from actual history or something that was just made up on the spot. This whole fight between Luffy and Dory is just so brutal. Luffy rocketing into Dory's already exploded stomach. Episode 73. I've mentioned how I like the music of One Piece before, but I always neglect to mention the killer sound design. Like, this whole scene is just done so well from an audio standpoint. Just, chef's kiss. And then the follow-up with Broggy crying because of Dory's death. Oh my gosh. This sequence alone is what makes this episode great. Which isn't to say there aren't other great elements like this top 10 Usopp face. But there are also elements like Nami being covered in a mysterious white splooge that I'm not the biggest fan of. From the looks of it, it's candle wax, and I sure hope I'm right. I will say, I'm not the biggest fan of the Lemon Girl. That's mostly because of the vocal direction. Like, not even the voice acting, just the direction. She always sounds way too happy, but in like a really fake tone to me. Episode 74. I really like how the concept of toughening up and getting your shit together in a fight isn't intrinsically tied to masculinity inside of One Piece. In most anime or even TV shows in the Western sphere, you're getting a lot of, oh, I gotta man up, I gotta be a strong man. But in One Piece, even though the male characters are leading the charge on this strengthening up type of thing, and even though all the female characters are drawn like they have Marfan syndrome, the concept is only ever tied back to, as Usopp puts it, being a great warrior. The creator of One Piece really does write his female characters very well, at least a lot better than some contemporary anime even today. That being said, I do like that Mr. 3 carved a little pumpkin head into his candle machine. And holy shit, Zoro was really about to cut his own legs off before Luffy barged in. This episode was mostly set up. I'm assuming we're going to get more fights in the next couple episodes. Episode 75. We're already back to action-packed episodes, which feels a little quick considering the fact that we just got to Little Garden like a couple episodes ago. But when you take into account Reverse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, and Little Garden, it does kind of add up quickly. In fact, that's actually how Netflix has them grouped together. I love how Zoro's backup plan for if Luffy doesn't save them is to just leave a nice-looking corpse. I like Miss Golden Week's paint-based ability. I don't know if it's a devil fruit or not because they don't say it is. It acts like a devil fruit power, but they say it comes from just a complete understanding of color, which isn't necessarily a devil fruit. Could you imagine that devil fruit power though? Oh, I have the color fruit. Does it let me do anything? No, but I have a very good understanding of what orange would look best with that green. This bit with Karu leaving Usopp behind is pretty funny, but also top 10 Usopp face. Episode 76. Between the Toei logo, the opening narration, the opening song, and the opening recap of the entire Little Garden arc so far, and the title card, it takes 6 minutes for the episode to start. And the credits are another 2 minutes of runtime. That's 8 minutes total. That's a third of the episode. And I don't even know why the opening recap is so long because this episode is so fast paced. That being said, top 10 Usopp face. This episode, what we do see in it is actually very fun. Like, I like that this guy's bullets are made of his breath and he keeps shooting them. I like that this guy has his wax mech as stupid as it looks. And Usopp continuously proves himself to be the smartest member of the crew. What a way to go this would be. Sanji's little side adventure is also fun. I feel like we haven't seen a lot of him this arc, so it's nice to see him actually, like, doing something. For as big of a fuss as I'm making over this episode, I actually really liked it. It was a pretty good one. Episode 77. There's one scene in particular that I want to walk you through my exact thoughts that I was having when I watched it. Oh, look, another fun cartoonish fight. It's Sanji versus the Unluckies. This is gonna be fun. It's Sanji versus a couple cartoon animals. You can't go wrong with that. He took out the otter by just, like, kicking it. He's probably just going to do the same with the vulture. I wonder why he's taking so long. Isn't he just gonna... Oh my god! In all seriousness, I think that's the first time a Straw Hat has actually killed something on screen, other than the time that Nami pushed that guy off the edge in Reverse Mountain. In other news, Dory's still alive, because their weapons dulled after 100 years. Who would have guessed? I do love that they made the giant goldfish that poops islands from Usopp's lies to Kaya into a real thing. And if Dory and Broggy could do this, why the hell were they fighting with rusted weapons for 100 years? Anyways, great episode. We got our first glimpse at Crocodile, we got Dory and Broggy's story finished, we got giant goldfish, really everything you could ask for. That's all for this time, stay tuned for more.
Though Devil Fruit certainly got a lot of action in Little Garden, there's only one new introduction in this arc, Mr. Three's Wax Fruit. This one is an easy A tier, especially given the degree of control and precision Mr. Three shows the fruit is capable of. The ability to make lifelike statues and elaborate death machines alike means it is great in and out of combat, but the ability is held back by a lack of color. If you could get your very own Miss Golden Week just by taking a bite of the Wax Fruit, it'd be low S tier, but without her, it doesn't get placed any higher than this. In addition to its antagonist, Little Garden did a lot of things right in the 8 episodes spent on it. The giants are lots of fun and tie really heavily into Usopp's character arc by not only setting the example he wants to live up to, but also living the lies he told to Kaya. The existence of the giant goldfish, to me, definitely means that even if they were to never show up again, Dory and Brogy are going to be instrumental as to how Usopp grows as a character. It makes sense, too, because this is a very Usopp-focused arc, with Sanji and Zoro both out of play until the very end, and Luffy tied up with bigger fish, leaving everyone's favorite long-nosed liar in the limelight until the crew makes way for Drum Island.
Watching and reviewing all of One Piece, episode 78. I like this little flashback with Dory and Brogy actually being the greatest pirate captains of their generation. That's a fun little detail. And the hunting contest that parallels what Zoro and Sanji were doing this whole arc, that's so fun. That's such a nice bit of writing. But now that we're leaving Little Garden and they have an eternal log pose, it's finally time to actually get to Alabasta. Psych, Nami's sick. This does raise an interesting question. How the hell have they gotten so far without finding a doctor? It's been like 30 episodes since Zoro said they needed a doctor in Kokoyashi Village and they still haven't found one. I think I can already tell that Mr. 2 is not going to be one of my favorites. We really only see a couple brief glimpses of him, but his fashion sense is appalling. Is that Crocodile? That looks like the glimpse of the guy who was Mr. Zero, and Mr. Zero is Crocodile. Going so far to hide your face and then you're just hiding it in the end credits. Come on, man. Episode 79. I had to look up what this guy's name was because I wasn't sure if they were saying Waffle, Wappo, or Wapple. It's Wapple. But I feel like I shouldn't have looked it up because there was immediate spoilers for the rest of this arc. Probably nothing that I couldn't have already gleaned just from context clues, but let's just say he's a little more than just a pirate. Poor Tashigi, almost going out the same way her doppelganger did. That wouldn't have been good for Zoro's mental health. I do like the existence of this black transponder snail as a convenient way to explain whenever Smoker, Tashigi, and the rest of the Marines show up. In the Grand Line, islands are divided by season, which is a fun concept. I like it, especially since each has their own set of 4 seasons. The episode also ends with Vivi getting shot, but we all know she didn't actually get shot. They've set her up to be too important for the upcoming story. Episode 80. What do you know? I was right. Vivi didn't actually get shot. She just got grazed by the bullet. Because they're not gonna kill off a significant character this early into the arc. I like how Zoro's collecting more and more scars the more stupid stuff he does. Like he almost cuts off his own feet. Boom, he gets foot scars. You mean to tell me the only doctor left on this island is Santa Claus? Pardon, Mrs. Claus. The kingdom formerly known as Drum is already shaping up to be a pretty fun setting to explore this arc. I like the winter vibes, I like how they're playing in the snow, I like the wildlife designs with the walking bear and the Loppans. I like the big bunny bears the best. So you mean to tell me that Drum Kingdom got decimated by Blackbeard? Like Edward Teach, the real-life historical figure. By the way, Wobble being king is a bit of information I found out in the wiki. It's not that big a deal, apparently, because they just revealed it the next episode. What do you know? Episode 81. This is the episode that we're introduced to Dr. Kureha and her companion, a deer in a little hat named Chopper. I love animals and silly hats, so he's already one of my favorites. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of her character design, mostly because she has just the standard female body with just an old woman's head on top. Come on, there's gotta be more variations than massive boobs, tiny waist for female characters. She does seem like she's gonna be a fun supporting character, especially during this interaction with Zoro. Speaking of, come on man, how the heck do you get lost on a winter island with no shirt on? So we learn more about Wapple and learn more that he's the world's biggest asshole. I am glad that this guy got his ass kicked the other episode. Pretty run-of-the-mill episodes. It sets up the stakes for the rest of the arc pretty well, but it doesn't really introduce anything too groundbreaking. I guess we do get introductions to the new characters that are going to be important for the rest of the arc. Episode 82. We're introduced to another new devil fruit. This is Dalton's ox fruit, which lets him turn into an ox, who would have guessed. But they specifically call it out as being a zone-type devil fruit, and I don't know what that means. I like these little interactions between Vivi and Usopp. They just have good chemistry. Dodging surfing bear rabbits while going down an avalanche would have made a killer Flash game back in the day. I absolutely love this scene where Luffy rescues the big bear bunny, because that just shows, like, his real character. Like, it's a true testament to how good of a guy Luffy is. And Luffy being such a good guy, I can't wait to see him kick Wapple's ass. I cannot stress enough how much I actually like that Wapple is such a jerk. Having a hateable villain is so much better to me than having a relatable one. I mean, relatable ones are good and all, but, like, there's something about just a villain that you want to punch in the face that really satisfies that urge to watch a hero punch him in the face.
Episode 83.
Through the amazing power of just not being a jerk, Luffy has already managed to command more respect from the local wildlife than Wapple could ever dream of. I love this whole not a fight sequence where Luffy doesn't fight back against Wapple's minions because he doesn't want to excabrate Nami and Sanji's being unconsciousness. But, like, come on, man. They're gonna feel you do a backflip. That's just extraneous. Top 10 Usopp face. Zoro stealing his opponent's swords is lots of fun, especially since he doesn't have his, but don't put that in your mouth, you don't know where it's been. This whole sequence of Luffy climbing the pure vertical mountain, there's gotta be a better way than magical reindeer or climbing up a pure vertical to get onto this castle. This is my new favorite character in all of One Piece. Little dude in a silly hat. Nothing beats little dude in a silly hat. That is peak character design.
Episode 84.
I've only known Chopper for an episode and a half, but if anything happened to him, I would gum pistol everyone in this room and then myself. I love that he's not a human that ate a deer-themed devil fruit. He's a deer that ate a human-themed devil fruit. That's so fun. I guess it makes sense that animals can also eat devil fruit and get their powers, but now I'm just wondering, what would happen if a human ate the human fruit? It turns out Nami's sickness was caused by a bug bite she got on Little Garden, which is something I wrote down in my notes because they called it out explicitly, but I didn't think much of it at the time. So it's just nice to see that little bit of continuity. I don't think I can stress enough how much I absolutely love Chopper. I gotta get a little Chopper hat to put on Gary now. Gary, you'd love that, wouldn't you? His whole backstory is so sad though. Racist reindeer and xenophobic humans, he's still a newborn here. Don't worry, Chopper. I still love you.
Look, I'm super easy to win over. You just need to put a little guy in a hat in front of me.
Episode 85. I love Luffy hunting down Chopper, trying to get him to be his friend while Chopper runs away. It's so fun. Every time Luffy does something like this, I have the horrible realization that that's not just cartoonish exaggeration. His mouth actually expands that big. Most of this episode is Dr. Rean telling Sanji and Nami the story of how Chopper came to be, which means it's a flashback episode. I like Dr. Hero Look and how even though he's shown to be incompetent, he's also shown to be a very kind and caring man. Especially with a scene that I don't think I can show on YouTube where he strips naked just to get Chopper to trust him. He turned that man into a frog. Funniest shit I've ever seen. The relationship buildup between Chopper and Hero Look is actually done really well, which makes this scene where he drives Chopper away because he's sick so sad. Oh, Chopper's backstory almost gives Nami's a run for its money. I guess it's just a rule that every cool character needs to have a tragic backstory.
Episode 86.
This episode was a continuation of last episode's flashbacks, and it's also the closest I've ever come to crying watching an anime. Chopper's whole journey to get the mushroom for Hero Look because he thinks it'll cure him is just so sweet. It shows how Chopper and Hero Look have that just unbreakable bond. But the whole thing stemming from Chopper misunderstanding what the skull and crossbones means due to Hero Look's just passion for helping people. It's so sweet, which only makes the emotional moments hit so hard. Hero Look's speech about healing a country's sickness and going to save the MDs even though he's on his very last strings of life. It's just, oh my god. I love this character. I love this show. I love this arc. Everything about this is so good. Episode 86 is genuinely one of my favorites of the entire series so far. And I'm sure it'll eventually get dethroned because there's still like 1,000 more of these to go. But for now, it is among the best.
Episode 87.
Finally, it's time for Luffy versus Wapple. I can't wait to see how this fight goes. Oh. This is gonna be a pretty one-sided final boss encounter, isn't it? This episode features an extended flashback to a bunch of stuff that we literally saw last episode. And I'm okay with flashbacks. In fact, a well-placed one can even really enhance a story. But this is just padding so they don't have to animate more for this episode. And I understand why. Budget constraints, time constraints, can't catch up to the manga too fast, otherwise you have to do more Warship Island. but it still feels like incredibly out of place and really screws up the pacing. With abilities like this, if Wobble's Devil Fruit was in anyone else's hands, they could just rule the entire world with it. That is so strong. You can absorb whatever you eat, you can eat anything, but in Wobble's hand, he's gonna get his ass kicked by a stretchy teenager that had to borrow a winter coat.
Episode 88.
Me every time I see Chopper on screen. Who would have guessed the secret to increasing your strength in the One Piece universe is to do drugs? I actually really like Chopper's bonus transformations, especially this big ball one. I really want a marketable plush of the big ball Chopper. The fight against the fusion guy is a great demonstration of Chopper's abilities, and he's bouncing around the screen in such a fun way. I love all of his different transformation designs, and his brain point being able to scan enemy weak points. And considering Netflix labels this batch of episodes as Enter Chopper at the Winter Island, I'm glad he's probably going to be joining the crew permanently. I love this scene with Usopp, Vivi, Zoro, and Dalton, because even though Usopp is a major coward, he's always willing to step up when you actually need him. And sometimes all it takes is one person to step up for others to do the same. Luffy being so obsessed with the fight that Wobble can kind of just tiptoe away is also hilarious. I love Drum Island so far. Episode 89. With Wobble getting kaputzed, I want to reflect on why I think he was such a good villain for this arc. Wobble's a very simple, very one-note, very good villain. Like a lot of the great villains in this show so far, he's an inversion of something about the heroes. Namely, he's an inversion of Luffy's compassion. Wobble is someone willing to run away the second things look too dangerous. Whereas Luffy is someone who's willing to protect just about anything, even just a bunch of baby birds, and a bunch of people that he just met. Luffy's even willing to protect the legacy of someone he'll never meet. So when Wapple goes blasting off again, it's a victory of optimism versus cynicism, of selflessness versus narcissism, and it's great. Also, Wapple makes for great body horror. Oh my god, if Devil Fruit users were real, I would shit my pants. Episode 90. I've said it before and I'll probably say it again, but I really like these end-of-arc episodes where the characters just get a chance to relax for a bit. Even though in this episode that a bit doesn't last quite as long as it probably could have. This whole bit with Chopper giving like an extended reasoning for why he shouldn't join the crew, only for Luffy to be like, sweet, you should join anyways, is so touching. This episode is also filled with great character moments, like Kureha chasing down Chopper so he doesn't feel guilty for leaving, and Nami using the key she swindled from Wapple as a bargaining chip to get out early. And of course, the best part of the episode, Dr. Hero looks cherry blossoms finally blooming over a winter island. This is just such a magnificent visual to end the episode on. And honestly, this whole arc has been among the best in the series. This is definitely among the top 10 so far. Now that I think about it, there have also only been 10 arcs so far. Episode 91. There's a lot of moments this episode that feel like they're going to be significant in the long run. Like the guy who saved Luffy back in Logtown is a criminal named Dragon, and he's so notorious that the government got all the respectable heads of state in Wapple together to discuss him. There's this character who calls himself Ace that's looking for both Blackbeard and Luffy, and you know what that means, he's either his brother or in love with him. We get a more detailed look at how Baroque Works actually operates with its hierarchy system, and we get to see Mr. 2, who calls himself Bon Clay, his full outfit, which, oh my god, what's with that diaper? Kureha reveals that Gold Roger's real name was Gold D. Roger, and something to do with the spirit of D is going to be significant. They jam-packed so many ideas into the 18 minutes of actual runtime for the episode that I'm surprised they even had time to do this goofy stuff at the beginning. But I'm glad they did, because the goofy stuff is the stuff that I love the most. Despite this episode having a breakneck pace, it's still nice to see Chopper interact with the crew during his first voyage out to sea and kind of get to know everyone. It's a great downtime episode, and I'm glad that they'd made it. But that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more. Drum Island brings us 3 new Devil Fruit powers to rank. In order of appearance, we have Wobble's Munch Munch Fruit, Dalton's Ox Ox Fruit Bison Edition, and Chopper's Human Human Fruit. The Munch Munch Fruit is an easy S tier. Sure, Wapple is an idiot, but the ability to alter and spit up anything you eat has so much potential outside of combat. Not to mention he can resize his mouth to eat anything. The biggest problem with the Munch Munch Fruit is that Wapple ate it. The Ox Ox Fruit, on the other hand, gets put in B tier. It enhances your strength and lets you go undercover at your local furry convention / farmer's market, but there's nothing too amazing about it. It doesn't even make you arrow-proof. The Human Human Fruit is an obvious D tier. If Chopper didn't have his Rumble Ball, he would be useless in a fight, and the only reason he benefited from the fruit at all is because he started as a reindeer. I guess we could bump it up to C tier if you wanted to give it to an animal, but even then, the animal's not going to come out the other side with any special knowledge, only the same capacity for
learning that a human has. For being an in-universe detour, Drum Island sure did bring a lot to the table. Even if you ignore the addition of a new Straw Hat pirate, we're introduced to a whole new class of devil fruits. Kureha reveals Goldie Roger's real name in a way that hints it has significance. A character named Blackbeard is introduced, along with someone looking for him and Luffy. And the emotional moments between Chopper and Hero Look were enough to make a grown man cry. One Piece, being first and foremost a shonen series, means its primary audience is teenage boys. Here in America, a show aimed at teenage boys would be nothing but action and slapstick. I should know, I was one. So it's nice for One Piece to treat its audience with maturity and allow for those moments of sincere emotion to seep through and permeate the underlying motivation for the action rather than exist as set dressing. That said, now that Chopper's part of the crew, I'm gonna go make some cringe fan cams and stuff into this video. Recording this on my phone to tell you today's video is brought to you by me. If you really enjoyed this video since you're about halfway through it so far, please subscribe and also go follow me on Twitter. Thank you. Dream Soccer King is a One Piece short that was released attached to the third movie to celebrate Japan hosting the 2002 World Cup. It's a fairly simple short, with the Straw Hats going up against Buggy and his team of villains in a football shootout. The Straw Hats win, only for it to be revealed that it was all in Luffy's dreams. Luffy then proceeds to violate Usopp. Being another 5-minute short, there isn't much to say about it other than it's a delightful way to spend a short amount of time. There are some fun callbacks, like the islands that you can see when Sanji blasts a ball across the entire Grand Line, and some fun tidbits, like this character, Otachi, being voiced by series creator Eiichiro Oda himself. I'm also not that into soccer, so I have no clue why they're all taking turns shooting goals. But that's football for you. Chopper's Kingdom on the Island of Strange Animals is the third One Piece movie and was released in 2002 as a double feature alongside Digimon Tainer's Runaway Locomon. Chopper's Kingdom has only ever had one official English release. The first 3 movies were all released in subtitled format at the same time, and only in England, so it may be a little difficult to track down if you're planning on watching it alongside this video. The movie also takes a bit of a left turn from the first 2, seeing as it fits nowhere in canon. Chopper has joined the crew, but Vivi and a certain future crew member are missing, which means one of them is either asleep through the whole thing or this is just a different timeline altogether. The real world explanation is probably that Chopper's Kingdom was released less than a month after Chapter 218, the chapter that joins the crew. That means the whole production took place during the period of time in which it was clear that Vivi was going to stay behind in Alabasta, but before had expressed interest in becoming a Straw Hat. Because of that, I'm just placing it here, after Chopper has joined the crew, but before the Alabasta arc, and we're gonna pretend Vivi and Karu are having the world's most intense stress nap in the Mary's lower decks. The gist of the plot is that the Straw Hats wind up on an island inhabited primarily by intelligent animals whose king has recently died. Chopper falls out of their boat while it's flying through the air after a geyser launches it and is accidentally crowned king. The human Straw Hats end up following this trio of weirdos looking for the island's treasure, horns that bestow immeasurable power when eaten. The leader, Battler, has a violin that can control a group of animals called Horn Eaters, and also Luffy. Some shenanigans happen and the Straw Hats all reunite, but upon learning that they're pirates, the animals all freak out. Especially heartbroken is the single human resident of the island, who has been hanging around Chopper the whole time. Eventually, Battler and his cronies discover Chopper and try to steal his horns to eat them, only for Mobambi, the human kid, to steal the actual magic horns and accidentally feed them to Battler while using them as bait. Battler transforms into a chimera, reveals it was him who killed Mobambi's father, and gets his ass kicked by Luffy. The end. The movie as a whole is fine, I guess. I don't like the villains at all. They're like a 3 with Eldorado being a 10. And the random power up at the end with the horns basically give you zone devil fruit powers is dumb. Aside from the writing, the animation is fine. You can tell that they gave it a bit more of a budget in the second movie, but the defining visual style of the movie may just be because, as I learned from the One Piece wiki while spell checking names, the first 4 movies were all transferred to 35mm film instead of being distributed digitally. I also actually really like the outfits that the characters wear in addition to their standard designs. Their animal costumes are so delightful. My recommendation, if you want to watch Chopper's Kingdom on the Island of Strange Animals, you should. If you think you should watch it because it's One Piece, you're better off skipping it. It's not easy to find legally, and it's frankly the worst of the first 3 movies in my opinion. No new devil fruits were introduced in the movie, so I'll see you at the end of the Alabasta arc for the final tier list segment. Until then, please enjoy the smooth tones of me yelling strange opinions into my camera. One Piece fun fact. Although series creator Eiichiro Oda has never confirmed the exact reason why Zoro wears 3 gold earrings, it likely has to do with an old sailor tradition of wearing gold earrings with your home port inscribed. That way, if you died in an unexpected place, they could sell the earrings to pay for either your burial or to ship you back to your home port. The fact that there's 3 long earrings is also likely a reference to Zoro's famous 3-sword style. Now personally, I really like the show, so I decided to get a set myself. Wait a second. This is the wrong gear. I'm watching all of One Piece for the first time and reviewing every episode. Episode 92. We've seen bits and pieces of Mr. 2 in the past, but this is where we actually get an introduction to Bon Clay. His fashion sense is still atrocious, but I do like his eccentric personality. And I'm not quite sure what crime this is, but it definitely is one. We also get our first look at Crocodile outside of him being a shadowy, mysterious figure. His ability to create sandstorms is also demonstrated. Now, whether that's because he can control the wind or because he can control the sand is yet to be seen, but it is pretty cool. Poor Karu doesn't deserve to be used as bait. They're just putting Vivi through unnecessary additional trauma. This is it. This is the shot that everyone uses as the lollipop example for 4Kids editing. Sanji and Mr. 2 have never been seen in the same place at the same time. Coincidence? I think not. This is a really good episode that really does well in setting up the stakes for the arc we're about to enter. Episode 93. Luffy running off on his own in pursuit of meat is really funny, but also really important because it teaches us about the existence of this dance powder stuff. And the guy that Luffy beats up says that dance powder is partly responsible for the rebellion. Speaking of the rebellion, the way that this is edited and the voice lines, it almost implies that the rebellion is making perfume to stay funded. I'm not the biggest fan of how scantily clad Nami and Vivi are, but it was Sanji that picked the outfits, so it does make sense in character. Speaking of Nami and Vivi, when I say that they have very similar face shapes, this is what I mean. Which isn't even to say that their character designs are bad, they're actually really good. I just wish there was more variety between female characters. Like, look at the silhouettes for the male Straw Hats. They're all designed to be identifiable with just a single glance, whereas Nami and Vivi are so similarly shaped and they're even the same height. As much as I'm rambling, I really do think that One Piece has some of the best character designs in anime. Episode 94. My joke about Ace being Luffy's brother turned out to be right, so that means confirmed canon, Dragon is his father, and Alvida is his mother. Okay, so we've got Stretchy Guy, Big Guy, Fire Guy. All we're missing is someone who can turn invisible, and we've got ourselves a veritable Fantastic Four. I like Zoro's Bounty Hunter Pass coming into play to identify Ace as a Whitebeard pirate, but there's a Blackbeard and a Whitebeard now? How many more beards are there going to be? Is there going to be Orange Beard, Green Beard, Blue Beard? What other beards are there? I really like how Ace is so cool, but in kind of like a fucked up greasy way. Just really stellar character design. I absolutely love it. It's nice to see Smoker again, even if he does nothing but get clowned on this whole episode. Episode 95. I'm starting to think Luffy's just got a mid-tier devil fruit. He's not weak by any means, but look at what Ace can do. The brotherly dynamic between Luffy and Ace is also super well written. You can definitely tell the two characters have a lot of care, love, and respect for one another. And the way they're both so nonchalant when it comes to people threatening their lives is great. I really like Ace's little watercraft being propelled by his devil fruit powers. That's fun. I know Ace probably isn't going to join the crew, but it'll be fun to have him as a recurring character that shows up every couple arcs. Kind of like Smoker and Tashiki. Speaking of, with all the pirates he lets get out of his grasp, I'm starting to think Smoker's just not a very good marine. I never realized just how bad the steering situation is on the Mary. Why is the steering wheel behind a doorway? And why is it not even a wheel? I also like how this scene where these billions killed Mr. 11 is kind of a demonstration of how Crocodile's utopia is just a farce. A world in which you can only move up in the social hierarchy by eliminating those above you is just a world where the strong have license to prey on those who they perceive to be weak. But as Luffy and Ace both demonstrate in this fight against the billions, true strength comes from the conviction to protect those you love, not to harm those who you perceive as weak. It's the same message that pretty much every shonen anime ever delivers, but it's still a good one, you know? If you want to fight, fight to protect, not to hurt. Episode 96. I love these little dudes that beat the tar out of Usopp, and their devotion to Luffy after he kicks their ass is so cute. So we get more information on how dance powder actually did cause the rebellion, being a powder that causes droughts as much as it causes rain. And this whole thing is orchestrated by Baroque works, including the guys that tried to kill Luffy and Ace. Of course, now that things are moving along, we are getting more time with Crocodile, and peak character design makes her return. I seriously cannot overstate how much I just love the way that her face is drawn. If it weren't for the fact that she's evil, I'd be begging for Miss All Sunday to join the crew just so there would be more variety in terms of face shapes. I do like these new designs for Nami and Vivi's outfits, especially because they're traversing a desert, so it makes sense that they would want to cover up their skin so they don't get sunburnt, and it's obvious they're still wearing the dancers' outfits underneath, which means they have the option to be risque instead of having it forced on them by Sanji. Oh my god, look at those lizards. Episode 97. Right off the bat, we've got another top 10 Usopp face. I have a feeling we're going to spend a long time and a lot of episodes on this desert trek to Alabasta. Just, call it a hunch. If your goal is to not waste water
water, forcing Luffy to spit it all out is actually doing the opposite. I love how everyone is cuddling Chopper to get as much warmth as possible in the desert, and the nonchalance with which Luffy plays around with a scorpion. It makes sense, he's never been to a desert before, but at least Vivi knows to tell him off. So is Alabasta just the Grand Line's equivalent to Australia? Because it feels like every creature so far is deadly beyond compare except for the camel. Even the birds will steal all your stuff and leave you to die of thirst. The only thing deadlier than the lizards is just how hot Ace is. He cooked that thing from the inside out. Not a big fan of the camel being a pervert, but Sanji, come on. That's a double standard, beating up a guy for being a pervert when you yourself picked those dancers' outfits. Episode 98. Vivi mentioned Alabasta a couple episodes ago, so I thought that's where they were heading. But thanks to this fancy graphic at the beginning of the episode that I'm sure won't get old, it looks like they're heading to a place called Yuba. Luffy takes hallucinogenic drugs was not on my bingo card. I love the existence of sand pirates, which the episode goes to great lengths to show are different than desert bandits. Sea pirates, sand pirates, what's next? Sky pirates, inland lake pirates? It's official, Ace's pet lizard is my new favorite character in the show. All this backstory between Vivi and the sand pirate lady really is good for fleshing out Alabasta's monarchy, especially displaying how they're well-meaning but ultimately flawed and imperfect. It all just makes it more believable that the people would rebel if they thought the king was using dance powder. This has got to be one of the worst ways to die, getting crushed by a massive ball of dung. I like how Zoro borrows someone else's sword so he doesn't make his gross. That's great. Episode 99. This is a very interesting episode to me because while it does a good job fleshing out the country of Alabasta and the whole situation with the rebels, it's just really boring. The fake rebels have a fun interaction with Ace, but like, nothing else really interesting happens. Luffy takes a punch that realistically shouldn't even hurt him, I guess, which is part of the charade to test the fake rebels to make sure they're actually worthy of protecting this city. But this is such an unnecessary detour from the main story. Like, why does it exist? I guess its main purpose is to tie into the story of the rebels and show why the public would support them so much, especially if they're fending off bandits and pirates in towns that are pretty remote and don't necessarily have the military backing of the actual Alabastan government. In the end, it's still a better episode than Warship Island. That's all for this time. Stay tuned for more. Episode 100. They didn't have 0 candles at the store. The episode opens up with Nami and Vivi talking about the origins of the rebellion, which means it's time for a flashback episode. I genuinely love these flashback episodes because it's so fun to see the little kid versions of the crewmates that we've come to know and love. We also get to expand on certain characters that only had minor roles in the present day story. This episode does a really good job at setting up Koza as the leader of the rebellion, him being someone who's genuine, selfless, and close to the royal family. If he's been working away in Yuba for years, it makes total sense that he would feel betrayed by the king's use of dance powder, even if that never actually happened. Both him and the king only wanting what's best for their people really sets up an interesting dynamic. This is a really great episode, but I also want to take a moment to say thank you for everyone who watches these. This channel recently hit 1,000 subscribers, which is a goal I've wanted to achieve for a lot of years. So I am genuinely super thankful for everyone who watches. Thank you so much for watching. That's all for this time. Stay tuned for more. Episode 101. It's not a coincidence that Luffy was playing with that scorpion the other episode. It was all foreshadowing for this random bounty hunter going after Ace. Truly, Toei are master storytellers. This is another episode a lot like 99, where it has a couple enjoyable elements mostly revolving around Ace, but for the most part, it's just a needless plot, needlessly added, needlessly into the anime. I'm gonna say needless one more time just to pad this episode. I get that it ties into One Piece's thematic overtone of following your dreams, but it's kind of antithetical to that because this guy follows his dreams and gets his ass kicked. I guess they do kind of show that his real dream is actually making sure his children are safe and happy and all that jazz. So in a way, he does achieve it. I just can't wait to never see these characters again. I love that Ace's wanted poster just looks like he's posing for a magazine cover shoot. The only thing important to come out of this episode is that Ace leaves the group and gives Luffy a little slip of paper to remember him by. I hope we see him again soon. Episode 102. If I had a nickel for every time Luffy took hallucinogenic drugs in the desert and endangered his teammates, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Not gonna lie, this joke about Chopper falling into the sand was fucking hilarious. Luffy, Zoro, and Chopper get caught in a sand pit and find his hieroglyph brick. At first it seems like kind of a pointless endeavor, but I like how it ties into Vivi's thoughts about the situation in Alabasta, and Sanji's comment on the rising and falling of kingdoms. It doesn't really matter if the rebels win so long as the people are still safe. Things have changed since the ancient kingdom that buried this brick in the sand was around, but Alabasta is still a thriving thriving kingdom, tying everything into Vivi's thoughts about whether her kingdom even needs saving, only for the Straw Hats to reunite after these three got lost and give Vivi that beacon of hope back. It just reminds us that everything will be fine so long as this schmuck can defeat Crocodile.
Episode 103. We are finally past the filler episodes, which means we get to meet the rest of the Baroque work agents. You have Miss Merry Christmas and her partner, Mr. 4. Mr. 2 makes his fabulous return. Seriously though, I'm starting to understand why people like Mr. 2. Still can't get past that diaper though. Mr. 1 is built like a brick shithouse, and his partner, Miss Doublefinger, has proportions so exaggerated they go beyond sexualized into the realm of hilarious. And what's that? Back out, it's Mr. 3 with the steel chair. On the Straw Hat side of things, we finally get to Yuba, only to find it's been hit harder by the drought than anywhere else in the country. The only one still living there being Kosa's father. It makes a lot of sense, because even in the flashback, he only ever saw the royal family with reverence, whereas Kosa grew to see them more as people due to his interactions with Vivi and the king. Toto here is a character that feels like he's failed his divine purpose given to him by his almighty, because that's essentially what the king is to him. It makes sense why he would stick around in Yuba for so long. This is a killer episode, and it's nice to get back into swing after that string of filler. Episode 104.
Are we sure Luffy didn't eat the shovel fruit with how deep he managed to dig this hole?
Miss All Sunday has already shown herself to be willing to go behind Crocodile's back, so I really hope that it's set up for her to betray Crocodile and usurp his position as the head of Baroque Works and a warlord of the sea. It would make for a very interesting recurring villain, someone who was once on the Straw Hat side, but only for very situational reasons.
Crocodile implies that his actual plan isn't to create a utopia, but to instead do something different involving something that's in the country of Alabasta. I have no clue what it is, but if this man is willing to overthrow an entire country just for it, it's probably not good. I appreciate the build up to the confrontation between the Straw Hats and Baroque Works, but it's gonna take a while because the Straw Hats are still in Yuba, but Crocodile and his cronies are wherever the fuck this is. I like how every time they do a zoom in on Crocodile, it's just the blurriest PNG possible. I get it, budget constraints.
Episode 105.
I find it interesting that the show makes a point to have a very in-your-face parallel between Koza and this young boy. And when I say in-your-face, I mean they call it out directly in the narrative, so it's probably gonna have some importance later on. We also get to see Smoker and Tashigi again in this hilarious scene at the bar. I feel like these two just pop up in all sorts of random places, but you know, I'm all for it. Zoro beating up a dozen nameless schmucks, but then cowering in fear because a woman kinda looks like his childhood friend. That's great. Something that I like about shonen protagonists like Luffy is they always learn from their battles. When he got caught by Smoker in Logtown, he developed the Gum Gum Balloon to be able to escape him here in Alabasta. It just goes to show Luffy's not actually as dumb as everyone thinks he is.
Episode 106.
I was so busy trying to read all the Japanese characters on this screen with my limited understanding of the alphabet that I completely missed Alabasta Kingdom. One thing I love about One Piece is that those Straw Hat Pirates are kind of like a family. This episode also formally introduces Sea Prism Stone, which we've technically seen in the past in Logtown when Buggy and Alvida got caught in a net, but now we officially know its name, and that it weakens Devil Fruit users just by having them touch it. Speaking of Devil Fruit users, we learn what Miss All Sunday's Devil Fruit power is, the Flower Fruit, which makes for some gnarly body horror. Just when I thought Miss All Sunday couldn't get more peak, Echiro Oda proves me wrong. I find it very interesting that Sanji's being very clearly and deliberately kept out of any dealings to do with Baroque Works. Baroque Works still doesn't even know that this guy exists. He's gonna be their ace in the hole for sure.
Episode 107.
I know whenever I get in a disagreement with someone, I always throw a whole galleon at them. Look, I'm just gonna be frank here. I think the galleon was overkill. You don't need to throw that whole ass boat at them. This whole scene with the fake king is such a good example of dramatic irony that I unironically think it should be taught in literary classes.
What do you know? The kid that was directly stated to be representative of Kosa's innocence is being treated as a representative of Kosa's innocence.
I really like Kosa's motivation for being the leader of the rebellion. He still wants to believe that the king is innocent, but he's fighting to make the king prove it. Which, of course, is not helped by Baroque Works interference. When you think about it, Crocodile's plan is actually really good. He accounted for every possibility, except for the future king of the pirates just happening to befriend the princess of Alabasta. We're really getting into the heat of things now. That's all for this time. Stay tuned for more.
Episode 108.
Crocodile's whole, "you're right, I would have killed you if you tried to leave" thing to Vivi is so badass in such a cool, villainous way. Like, obviously Crocodile is going to lose. He's the bad guy in an arc that takes place a tenth of the way through the series. But this is definitely the Empire Strikes Back moment of this whole saga. Important twists are revealed. The heroes are just straight up losing right now, but they still have a hope that they could win the day even if they don't do it immediately. If by some miracle this short gets in front of someone in charge of making decisions at the live action One Piece, please let me play one of these random dudes strewn across the ground. Like, not
even the guy that talks, I just want to be one of the dudes lying dead in the background. Episode 109.
This scene with Chopper just beating everyone, all while triumphantly yelling, "I'm Mr. Prince, I'm Mr. Prince," only to escape Crocodile to the most adorable means ever, is so funny. How is it that of all the Baroque Works officer agents, Mr. 3 is the most important to the plot? Why him? I like this scene where Luffy orders Zoro to save Smoker. It makes 100% sense for him in character. And in the end, do good things for people and people will do good things for you. If an eye for an eye means the whole world goes blind, a back scratch for a back scratch means the whole world doesn't itch. I'm gonna be honest, I spent a while trying to figure out what the note on Mr. 3 means, only to learn it's the most mocking way of saying "in a while, crocodile."
Episode 110.
Why does the crab look like a perv? He's friends with Eyelash, I guess it makes sense. It would be incredibly funny if Crocodile's hook was all just for show, just so he could make fishing puns.
I went fishing for a bluegill, but it looks like I got a rubber boot instead.
Name drop time. Miss All Sunday's real name is Nico Robin. I like how one-sided this initial fight against Crocodile is, especially because it includes a direct callback to the fight against Wapol, which is what's gonna make everything so much better when Luffy finally figures out how to kick Crocodile's ass. Or I guess I should say, if he figures out how to kick Crocodile's ass. This cliffhanger scene is so well done, especially the way the music just cuts out. It creates such a good sense of tension and intrigue. I want more.
Episode 111.
Rule number 1 of trying to kill the protagonist, Crocodile: never leave the body unattended. The hero will always survive. Nico Robin also mentioned something to do with the initial D. Deja vu, Kureha mentioned something incredibly similar back on Drum Island. All this probably means D stands for something more important than just like Dave. Monkey Dave Luffy. Oh god, the crab is a pervert. The little dudes are back to save the day. I love these guys. I need to order a marketable plushie of them. Speaking of little dudes, Supersonic Duck Squadron. All the creature designs are just on point this episode. But what isn't on point are those stairs. That is way too steep. With all these opposing factions and potential conflicts, we've got ourselves a real Texas 5-way here.
Episode 112.
Look, I'm not an expert on overthrowing countries, but if you're a clandestine operation, it's probably not the best idea to have a tattoo with your logo on every member. I get mistaken the others for Vivi because they at least have a humanoid build. But the camel? They thought the camel could be a Vivi? That's not even a fumble, that's spiking the ball at the 10-yard line. I really like this scene with Vivi in the dust trying to stop the rebels. If nothing else comes to top it, it might make my list for best scene of the saga. It's a testament to the great character work in this series that it's so easy to tell that Mr. Tusop here is fake. It's also a testament to the great vocal work in this series, although disclaimer, I am watching the dub.
Episode 113.
Friendship ended with Chopper, now Karu is my favorite silly guy in a little hat. That poor bird just takes so much punishment this episode, but keeps on trucking just for Vivi's sake. Mr. 2 deserves to get his ass kicked just for what he did to Karu. So this isn't a dog that ate the gun fruit. No, it's a gun that ate the dog fruit. Guns can eat devil fruit? How does that work? Do you just like shove it in? Look, no offense to Usopp, but if he weren't a main character, I'd give him 70-30 odds against that he makes it out of this fight alive. Worst play of the day goes to Nami making herself the target of 2 heavily armed, very deadly assassins. Truly a game-winning move if I've ever seen one.
Episode 114.
I'm not gonna lie, the 5-ton hammer scene had me reeling with laughter, especially when it fell apart. Usopp proving without a doubt that he is my favorite crewmate. I can't believe that Usopp got Looney Tunes by the mole lady. I really love this little bit that demonstrates how intelligent Chopper is. It's why he makes such a good pair with Usopp. They're both the most clever members of the crew. Would any of the other crewmates think to make the dog shoot his balls into the ground? Sure, it doesn't work, but it's still clever and intelligent. Usopp and Chopper versus Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4 is less of a game of strength and more of a game of who can outwit the other the best. Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4 having an inherent advantage because their devil fruit powers allow them to ignore certain tricks. Like that wall.
Episode 115.
I know the X-ray is for dramatic effect, but I'm not the biggest fan of the fact that Usopp's nose is made of skeleton instead of cartilage. Did Chopper eat the human fruit, or did he eat the Sasquatch fruit? Because this is not any shape human. I do love how Usopp and Chopper managed to actually win the fight by tricking Mr. 4 instead of trying to brute him out, because like I said last time, this is a game of wits. A game that Baroque Works very much lost despite having the upper hand. On the other side of Baroque Works, I love that Mr. 2's master plan to create the world's funniest funniest face is just his own face with Usopp's nose. I love how Mr. 2 finds out Sanji's weakness just by cycling through his crewmates until something works. I also like how Vivi's little command moment here makes the filler episodes that we went through a little less pointless in retrospect.
Episode 116.
This episode brings along a new intro, and I'm starting to see why people think I might be able to predict things. I promise I just really like the way her face is drawn. The case really isn't looking good for the existence of inland lake pirates. Next time I go to the hospital, I want a doctor to frantically read out all my diagnoses the same way Chopper does for Usopp when he thinks he's dying. This episode reveals to us that Zoro took out the previous Mr. 7 of Baroque Works when he was offered a job. I have no idea if that's going to be important later, but I'm mentioning it just in case. You know, I thought Mr. 2's fashion sense was atrocious, but it turns out he was just hiding his gaudy foot weapons as gaudy shoulder pads. I refuse to not call out the fact that Mr. 2 followed up making a face like this with the words, "He sure did finish me off."
Episode 117.
Nami asking Usopp to make her a weapon by insulting him a bunch and then refusing to pay him. That's some real queen shit. And then Usopp turning around and making a party stick instead of a real weapon. Now that's some real king shit. Usopp's party stick may actually be the secret to Nami's success here, because it's causing Spike Lady to feel so bad for her that she's not taking the fight seriously. Speaking of, the Spike fruit is already one of my favorites because it lets you be Spider-Man and Sonic the Hedgehog. I do like the Climate Tech's actual abilities though, being able to control temperature differentials in the air to control how it flows, which has some pretty creative uses in the right hands, as evidenced by this mirage. Oh god, the king got Jesused. So Crocodile's looking for a thing called Pluton, and he needs the king alive to find it. The king is incredibly scared, which means it's either his family's secret recipe for banana bread or some sort of weapon.
Episode 118.
So Pluton, definitely not banana bread. There's really just a weapon that can destroy entire islands hidden in the bowels of Alabasta. I'm starting to think Crocodile might not be as good of a guy as he says he is, because he's planning to blow up a lot of people. They show Miss Doublefinger's hand right before Nami gets pinned like this, so I thought she was just using her fingers. Nope, she's using her boobs. Ladies, if you look like this, hit me up. Getting her foot jabbed right through with a spike just to stop Miss Doublefinger so she can Cyclone Tempo her. Nami is metal as fuck for this. Not to mention the Cyclone Tempo scene plays out exactly the way it should, with the perfect mix of being funny and being super cool. But why the hell does every character fly through a wall like a Looney Tunes? There are more ways to fly through a wall than leaving a perfect silhouette of your body. How on earth is Usopp so good at making stuff that he can create a stick that can summon thunderclouds? Not only that, it can just create water. Usopp could have single-handedly solved the drought in Alabasta and ended the rebellion. He just didn't. I might just be misinterpreting things, but it really sounds like Zoro is 4 or 5 steps away from using a slur to trash talk Mr. 1. States rights to what, Zoro?
Episode 125.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of hate Miss Father's Day's design. Last time I said that it was about Mr. 2 and people keep commenting about how he's the GOAT, so I'm almost afraid that Miss Father's Day is gonna come back in some form. Look, I'm not saying that Nami's plan to launch everyone one by one into the air is bad, but did she have to get Usopp right in the bits? I have very mixed feelings on for how all intents and purposes the Straw Hats lost because of this timer on the bomb. On one hand, it creates a great sense of tension that really ramps up the stakes, but on the other hand, all Pell's done so far is fake die twice. So when he's the one that makes the noble sacrifice, all that weight's kind of undercut because we've already seen him die twice. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a cool animation though.
Episode 119.
I absolutely love this episode. Zoro spends the whole time on the back foot with Mr. 1 being like, you ain't him. And Zoro is stuck in his childish belief that if he wants to cut through steel, he only has to cut harder. These flashback scenes are perfectly timed and expertly demonstrate how baby Zoro could possibly get the wrong idea, or at the very least not internalize the full message. Which makes this moment when Zoro's on death's door yet can somehow sense the entire world around him, when Zoro fights to protect rather than to attack, and he finally learns what the words "a great swordsman can cut nothing" means. That we get the greatest "nah, I'm him" moment in the entire series so far.
Episode 120.
It looks like Nico Robin's devil fruit, if the arms that she makes get injured, also injures her, which is a neat little weakness to counteract her powers. Who the hell makes muscle juice that kills you? Like, I get it's a last-ditch effort kind of thing, but it still seems kind of asinine to make. I knew Crocodile was a jerk, but I didn't realize he was let a bunch of people die an embarrassing death kind of jerk. Top 10 Usopp face. I really like these little mini flashbacks that pop through Zoro's dying head. They're really amplified by last episode, his arc being that he learns he needs to protect instead of attack. Chaka's fruit makes him look like Batman. Normally these extended crowd reaction shots really feel like they're just there to pad time, but the conflict between the Royal Army and the Rebel Army really makes it feel like tension's actually being drawn out. And this is a great cliffhanger to end things on.
on. Episode 121. Baroque Works agents have seriously got to stop putting their logos on everything they do. It's kind of poetic that the final conflict between the rebels and the royals is happening in front of a clock tower because none of those men know they're minutes away from dying. Insert fortunate son here. One of my favorite things about anime characters is they can be battered, bruised, beaten, and covered in casts, but still be willing to put their whole indomitable spirit into a fight. This moment where Crocodile gets punched for the first time and probably since he's ever eaten that devil fruit, and he just looks like he's in pain. I love when heroes find easily exploitable weaknesses by sheer accident, and then go on to exploit them like the easily exploitable weaknesses that they are. I'm ready to see some grade A Crocodile ass kicking in the next few episodes, so that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more. Episode 122. How sweet, Pell thinks he's part of the group. I get that this is a gag I probably would have laughed a lot more at 20 years ago, but the internet has ruined my ability to look at Water Luffy. I like the rematch between Luffy and Crocodile. There's a lot of fun moments, and Luffy is surprisingly agile in his bloated state. I like the detail that Crocodile has to use his hand to absorb the water. It clearly defines the boundaries of the fight and how Luffy can actually win. Zoro, you can't just Goomba stomp people to get to the next place you need to go. That's rude. So it turns out Nico Robin is 28 and allegedly responsible for the destruction of 6 marine warships. Even by One Piece standards, I'm doubtful that an 8-year-old could destroy 6 boats, so I'm curious what the actual story is. The last few episodes have been great at finding the perfect moment to leave off on, and this one is no exception. Oh. Episode 123. I know Nico Robin's actually just betraying Crocodile here, but this Poneglyph is the same thing as the hieroglyph brick from that filler episode, so it would be hilarious if she was actually just telling the truth and the real Poneglyph with the Pluton's location was that one in the middle of the desert and Crocodile just didn't believe her. I once saw someone on Twitter use a gif of this scene to describe themselves stumbling home drunk from the bar. I guess it's nice to know the actual context is Luffy being on death's door. Seriously though, I wish I could wake up feeling that energetic after a 5-minute power nap. Nico Robin betraying Crocodile has been foreshadowed since Whiskey Peak, so I'm not exactly surprised this is happening, but it's still a shock to see her get stabbed like that. This is almost as brutal as when Bellamere got shot by Arlong. Actually, no, it's even more brutal than that. Episode 124. Mr. Seven and Miss Father's Day are a sniper duo. If only there was someone on the crew who had a long-range solution. Oda had to nerf Usopp for this encounter because he knew he'd be too powerful. I love the running gag of Zoro being directionally challenged, especially when he even gets directions, and somehow ends up confusing north with up. I'm not gonna lie, if I was on a battlefield, fingernails on a chalkboard would be devastating. Even though it involves a child getting slapped, this flashback scene is kinda sweet, especially the way it expands on Pell and Vivi's relationship, you know, right before Pell meets his brutal death. So Crocodile's hook has a second, even deadlier hook underneath. And if this is what it can do to a rock, I don't want to know what that thing is doing to Luffy's insides. Speaking of Luffy's insides, using his own blood in lieu of water to punch Crocodile is hardcore. How the hell are you going to be an agent of Baroque Works wearing the logo on your jacket and clothes and still try to pass off like you're not one? And how the hell was every Marine but Tashigi dumb enough to believe them? We know that there was a previous Mr. 7 because Zoro killed that guy. So did this guy just change his whole motif when he got promoted, like his eyebrows included? I guess it makes sense that the cannon is inside of a clock tower, but according to Cars 2, this clock tower should be filled with moving parts that would be crushing these children. And I'm inclined to believe Cars 2 over any other source. Episode 126. Crocodile loses for one very simple reason. It's not because Luffy has a stronger devil fruit or figured out his weakness. It's because in the great conflict of ideals, Luffy is fighting to protect others and Crocodile's only fighting for himself. It's something that's prevalent throughout the whole show, but especially prevalent throughout the Alabasta Saga. Luffy is positioned as a character that's willing to fight for the freedom, liberties, and lives of others, and he relies on his own strength and confidence to do so. Whereas Crocodile is someone who fights only for himself and his own goals, abusing and dismissing the needs of others, and even searching out a weapon because he can't rely on his own strength. When Crocodile's defeated and the rain starts and the fighting stops, it creates a sense of poetic justice. The rain not only weakens him physically, but also weakens his grip over the Alabastan people, which means Crocodile is utterly powerless because this goofy little dude fights for his friends. Episode 127. This episode really makes me feel bad for Tashigi. She spends the whole time being confronted by her own failure and having no choice but to accept praise for it. Even Smoker is telling her that she did a good job despite her inability to fully fight Crocodile. Speaking of Smoker, I hate to say it, but he actually did something really cool by telling the government to go fuck itself. I do very much dislike this Hina character though, because I don't like when characters talk and refer to themselves in the third person. It's just a pet peeve when it comes to writing character dialogue. I know that Dance Powder was probably carrying a lot of the weight in terms of stopping the rain, but I do like the implication that Crocodile was using his devil fruit in order to stop the rainfall. Episode 128. I need this dinner scene remade shot for shot in the live action. This is like a top tier One Piece scene. It's so funny. Oh my god, Django is back. The music that plays during this scene is the music that plays during Django
Django's dance carnival. My fondness for Django has only grown sweeter in his absence. Inversely, my fondness for Mr. 2 has only grown greater with his presence. I still hate his diaper, but I'll be damned if his interactions with the crew aren't hilarious. Look, at this point, it's clear that Vivi isn't going to be a permanent addition to the crew, but I'm glad that she was there while she was, and I'm hopeful that we get a good emotional send-off in the next couple episodes.
Episode 129.
My biggest takeaway from this episode is that Vivi is 16? She was naked last episode. Oh yeah, it's time for some epic Django action. Let's see how this goes down. I can't believe Django is dead, and Usopp killed him. I understand now. I understand why everyone loves Bon Clay. Bon Clay! Real talk though, I love that Bon Clay employs a guy whose job is to just dramatically drop cherry petals for him. I am incredibly happy that we got the emotional send-off Vivi deserved. This is how you send off a crewmate. It's been an amazing journey so far, and Alabasta has been one of the best arcs it could possibly be.
Episode 130.
We get to look at Hina's cage fruit. And Django lives! You cannot do a third fake-out death with Pell. That's just... why? I love Nico Robin's random and unceremonious addition to the crew. She doesn't help with the grand escape or anything. She just walks out the door, grabs a sun chair, and says, hey, I'm part of your crew now. And this job interview scene between her and Usopp is so funny. Especially when she wins Nami over with just a sack of money. Look, I'm with Sanji on this one. Nico Robin is a welcome addition to the crew from my perspective. We're coming up on a small string of filler, so it's probably going to be a bit before we learn anything more about these Poneglyphs or even more about Nico Robin's personality, but I'm still looking forward to seeing everything unfold. But that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more.
We've got one last set of Devil Fruit rankings with a count that rivals the entire East Blue in one arc. In no particular order, we have Mr. 4's Gun's Mut Fruit, Model Dachshund, Miss Merry Christmas's Mole Fruit, Mr. 1's Dice Fruit, Miss Doublefinger's Spike Fruit, Mr. 2's Clone Fruit, Pell's Bird Fruit, Model Falcon, Chaka's Dog Fruit, Model Jackal, Ace's Flame Fruit, Crocodile's Sand Fruit, and finally Nico Robin's Flower Fruit. Let's start with S tier, where we've got two new additions. Newly topping the list is the Sand Fruit. With enough training, Crocodile was literally able to use it to suck the moisture out of an entire country's air, and its only weakness is water, a weakness that all Devil Fruit users have to some capacity, just taken to the extreme. Unless you're going up against a protagonist or Honey Queen, you've got yourself a golden ticket of a Devil Fruit with this one. Likewise, the Flame Fruit is going right above the Plume Fruit. The two have similar levels of power, but fire generally has more uses than smoke, so it takes the number 2 spot. While we're in S tier, I'm actually gonna knock the Gum Fruit down to the top of A tier. In comparison to the rest of S tier, it's evident that Luffy is pulling a reverse wobble. While it's strong in his hands, there's no guarantee that any other user could replicate his success. Now that we're in A tier, let's add the Dice Fruit. The sheer destructive power is one thing, but it also makes your body as hard as steel, which puts you in the high end of durability. That being said, the amount of uses that being made of swords has pretty much boils down to hurting people and prepping food, and I don't do either of those very often. In terms of hurting people, we're also bringing in the Spike Fruit next. This one is only A tier because you can use it to Spider-Man crawl and Sonic the Hedgehog roll, but I guess the combat capabilities are also nice. To round out the additions to the tier, we have the Flower Fruit. This is an incredibly versatile fruit that would make me crap my pants if I ever saw someone use it in real life, but for all its usefulness, it just doesn't stack up with the S tier fruits. For B tier additions, we have every zone type Devil Fruit. They all do pretty much the same thing, just with different flavors of animal. Albeit the Bird Fruit and the Mole Fruit each come with an additional movement ability, so they get put at the top of the tier. At the bottom of the tier is the Mut Fruit that was given to the gun. The effectiveness came from the fact that it was already a gun, but if a human ate it, it would presumably be a similar level of power to Chaka. I'm also going to throw the Clone Fruit in here. It's great for espionage, BDSM, and Halloween, but it boils down to the user to make it worthwhile. I feel like I don't have much to say about the Alabasta arc beyond what I already said in my shorts. The extended nature of the arc means I really got to squeeze out a lot of thoughts without much more to add in. I guess I'm curious about the Poneglyphs and their potential impact on the future of the series. The Pluton also seems like Chekhov's nuclear warhead, so I'm certain that it'll come back into play eventually. All in all, while Alabasta certainly did well in wrapping up the saga's loose ends, it left the series with a few brand new mysteries that are unlikely to be solved anytime soon.
I'm watching all of One Piece for the first time.
Episode 131.
There is absolutely no heterosexual explanation for sleeping in this position. I'm not gonna lie, Captain Chopper might just be the most adorable thing ever. I absolutely love Robin and Chopper's dynamic in this episode. But I'll be honest, I don't really care much about the flashbacks sequences. This is just kind of useless information. I get it. Monkey D. Luffy's playing with the monkeys. My coverages of the next few episodes are going to be kind of short because as much as I love the character-driven stuff genuinely, it doesn't leave me a lot to comment on. Episode 132. This guy has got to be a trustworthy salesman. He's got his name printed on a sash that he's wearing. That's the mark of trustworthiness. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that all the stuff he's selling looks like it came out of a Sky Mall catalog. It's either the catalog or he works for Cutco, and I can't figure out which is worse. It is nice to see Nami use her skills as a cartographer because a lot of the time she gets boiled down to just navigator, but she is one of the most skilled map makers in the world. I feel like this flashback sequence doesn't add anything to the episode because by the very nature of these post-Alabasta episodes, it's just nothing substantive is allowed to happen. Man, I can't believe One Piece predicted people stealing from overworked Amazon delivery drivers. Truly a show ahead of its time. Episode 133. I get that One Piece filler varies in quality, but I really wasn't expecting an instructional cooking episode. I will say though, this episode handled the use of a brief flashback way better than the previous two by, integrating it into the story. I do like Luffy's little jungle gym subplot as a nice little distraction from the cooking. That's pretty fun. I was originally planning on following the recipe from the episode, but the ingredients would have cost way too much, so that's all for this time. Episode 134. This episode definitively proves that Luffy knows how to read. It's nice to get an Usopp-focused episode, but one thing I did notice is that this episode didn't have a flashback, even though the last, 3 have, which makes sense because everyone Usopp loves has either abandoned him or died or is Kaya. This scene where Usopp puts his lying skills to good use to be an emissary of heaven is pretty cute though, even if it's in a little bit of a fucked up way. I really like this wide-angle lens effect used to encapsulate the whole 200 gauge firework. That is a pretty neat drawing. Look, I really don't got a lot to say about this one. It's just a cute episode. Episode 135. In contrast to how last episode had no flashbacks, this episode is almost all flashback, being the story of how Zoro met Yosuke and Johnny. I'm not gonna lie, these Johnny and Yosuke designs go hard. I do like the little detail of Zoro learning to be less rough with his swords. That is fun. This dick guy, he's kind of a real jerk. Oddly, whereas the past few episodes have had flashbacks that feel out of place, this one has a flash forward that feels out of place. But in the end, this is the most fillerist episode that could possibly fill time.
The Post-Alabasta Arc was anime-only filler, so I'm not going to do any additional comments on it. But man, it's weird that every anime-only arc and movie so far has given the Straw Hats a child character to interact with. Oh look, I'm out of episodes to review for the Alabasta Saga, so you know what that means. Go watch the actual episodes of the anime if you haven't. Oh, and the video is almost over. I really enjoyed Alabasta as a whole. It wasn't bogged down by too much bad filler, and the episode quality was consistently good. I will admit, I kind of missed the amount of movies and specials from the East Blue, but I also know that there's way more to come, so I'm not going to spill milk over it. Like last time, I'm going out on a positive note with my list of favorites. Favorite new character, Chopper. He's a funny guy with a little hat and an amazing doctor. Easily the best possible addition to the crew. Ace comes in a close second though. Favorite arc, Whiskey Peak. It was only a few episodes long, but damn did they pack those episodes with everything they needed. Great action, great mystery, and of course, great setup for the rest of the saga. Favorite scene. As much as I love Vivi's emotional moments, Zoro lays claim to this category once again, with the "a great swordsman can cut nothing" scene. It's such an amazing moment, and it'll probably stay in my top 10 scenes until the end of the series. Favorite new ability. There's a lot more to pick from this time around, but I've got to give it to Dr. Hairlook. Yeah, his medical ability is whack, but his ability to inspire an entire country with his cherry blossom invention is the perfect end to the Drum Island arc. Favorite weird concept that just kind of works. Rumble Balls. I like the bonus forms they give Chopper, but what makes them my favorite is how much I want to see someone with a non-zone type devil fruit like Luffy or Ace eat one. Just as an experiment. If this video was right up your alley, I've got some good news. There are already a bunch more episode reviews here on my channel, and I post new ones as close to daily as I can. But that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more when in a few months we'll be taking a look at the Sky Island Saga.